Let me tell you a story from our village, a story about secrets and the people we trust to keep them. Is the story of a man named Korede, a simple, hardworking farmer. He had a strong back, rough hands, and a heart as soft as warm yam. He was the kind of man who rose with the sun and laid down when the sky turned orange. Now, Korede had a wife. Her name was Ronke. Ronke was everything you'd want in a woman. Beautiful, joyful, full of laughter. But she had one small problem. Her mouth. Ronke could talk, and when I say talk, I mean talk. She could tell a full story before the kettle boiled. She could tell you the news, the gossip, and what didn't even happen yet. Still, Korede loved her deeply. And that's where our story begins. It was a hot day. The sun was sitting right on top of Korede's head. He had been digging on the edge of his farm, just another day in the soil. Then, clang! His hoe hit something hard. Korede stopped. He knelt down, used his hands, dug faster, and there it was. A chest. Not a small one. Big, heavy, covered in dirt and time. He opened it, and his eyes widened. Gold. Real gold. Coins stacked on coins. So much it made his heart skip a beat. Korede sat back. He was breathing like he had run all the way from Lagos. God, he whispered, you really remembered me today. But just as the joy hit him, fear followed. Because he thought of Ronke, and he knew this secret was too heavy for her to carry. That night, Korede came home. His face was calm, but his mind was running like a market on Saturday. Ronke was in the kitchen, dancing while pounding yam. She saw him and smiled wide. "Ah, my husband," she said. "You look serious. What happened?" Korede sat down, quiet, then said, "Something strange happened at the farm today." Ronke dropped the pestle. "What is it? Are you okay?" Korede looked at her and asked gently, "Can you keep a secret?" Ronke put her hand on her chest. "Me, your wife, your rib? Ah, I can keep it better than a bank vault." He leaned in, lowered his voice. "I saw a hawk swimming." Ronke blinked. "Swimming? As in inside water?" He nodded. "Then it climbed out, landed on my shoulder, and spoke." Ronke gasped. "Ha! In whose voice?" Korede said, "In a man's voice. It said, 'Tell no one what you saw.'" Ronke's eyes were wide now. "Ha, this is not ordinary. But don't worry, I swear I won't tell a soul." Korede just smiled. He had started something. But Ronke couldn't hold it. The next morning, she was in the market selling pepper and palm oil. She leaned over to her friend, Tola, and whispered, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Funke, I'm telling you, my husband saw a hawk swimming yesterday, and it talked. It sat on his shoulder like this." Funke burst out laughing. Bola, another seller, joined in. "Are you sure he didn't sleep under the sun too long?" she asked. "Maybe the hawk is looking for a job," someone else said. "Next thing you know, it will open a shop beside yours." The whole market laughed, but Ronke just laughed along. She didn't think much of it, but Korede heard. That night, Korede sat outside, looking at the stars. Ronke came to sit by him. "I'm sorry," she said. "I told just one person. It slipped. I swear, never again." Korede smiled softly. "It's all right," he said. Then, he paused, thought for a moment. "You know," he said, "something strange happened again today." Ronke's eyes lit up. "Tell me," Korede leaned in. "I saw a fish flying from one tree branch to another." Ronke stared. "Fish? Flying?" "Yes," Korede said. "It jumped onto my head. Then it said, 'Tell no one what you've seen.'" Ronke held her breath. "I swear, I will tell no one. I will bury it in my heart." Korede smiled again. The next day, you guessed it, Ronke was at the market again, waving her hands, full drama mode. The fish was flying like eagle. It said, "Don't tell anybody, ha ha ha." Everyone burst into laughter. Bola said, "Your husband should write a book, talking animals and where to find them." Ronke was enjoying herself. The stories made her the center of attention. But what she didn't see was that slowly, no one was taking her seriously anymore. A few days later, Korede came home. Serious. "Ronke," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something." She sat up. "What is it?" "This time," he said, "it's real." Ronke looked at him, no jokes in his eyes. "I found something on the farm, a chest filled with gold coins." She gasped. "Real gold?" He nodded. "Enough to change our lives." Ronke's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. "I swear, this one, I will not speak a word, not even to the cats." Korede just nodded. Ronke tried. She really did. But by 10 a.m. the next day, the story spilled out of her like hot soup from a broken bowl. "Gold!" she cried. "Real gold! My husband found it on the farm." The market froze. Then Funke said, "Aha, is this season 4? Bola added, "Last week it was talking hawk, then flying fish. Now, treasure chest." They laughed harder than ever before. Ronke stood there, confused, then embarrassed, then sad. "No, this one is true," she whispered. But nobody believed her, not one person. That night, Ronke came home slowly. No dance, no song, just silence. She sat beside Korede, eyes red. "They laughed," she said. "All of them, like I was mad." Korede looked at her gently. "They didn't believe you," he said softly. "Because truth doesn't sound true coming from the mouth of a joker." She nodded, nothing left to say, and Korede smiled, not in victory, but in relief, because the secret, the gold, was safe now, not buried in the earth, but hidden inside a woman whose stories had lost their power. And that, my friends, is how Korede kept his greatest treasure, safe, in plain sight, behind a voice nobody trusted. Years passed in the village. The mango tree behind Korede's house grew taller. Ronke's voice, though still lively, had softened. And the story of the talking hawk, the flying fish, and the gold chest, it became one of those market tales people shared with laughter, never with belief. But Korede was no fool. He never forgot what he found that day, buried in the soil. And he never trusted the earth to keep it hidden forever. So he hid it far from curious eyes. He didn't leave it buried. No, he was wiser than that. So late one night, when the moon was high and the crickets were singing, Korede quietly went to where he had hidden the chest. This time, he didn't tell Ronke, not because he didn't love her, but because he finally understood. Some truths are better held than heard. He took the gold bit by bit into town. Not all at once. Slowly. He bought land, planted more, hired hands, started trading grain in the city. To the village, it looked like hard work. To Ronke, it looked like luck. To Korede, it was quiet justice. He built a new house, but not too grand. He sent 2 children to school, but told no one who paid. He donated food to widows during Harmattan and said only, God provides. People began to say, Korede is blessed. His hands are truly favored. Some even said, maybe that hawk really did speak. But by then, it didn't matter. One market day, Ronke sat with Funke and Bola, now older and wiser. She looked out over the square and said, You remember when I told you all about the gold chest? Funke laughed. Ah, the one with pirate treasure. That day you almost cried. Bola shook her head. That story was top 10. Ronke smiled. But this time, she didn't explain. She didn't shout, swear, or plead. She just said quietly, sometimes it's not the story that's unbelievable. It's the mouth that tells it. The others blinked, then nodded. That was the day Ronke stopped being a joke and became a proverb. And Korede? He never hid the gold again. Instead, he used it to build a future, stone by stone, quietly, steadily, because he had learned the greatest lesson of all. Not every treasure needs to be protected by walls. Sometimes, all you need is to let people laugh. Because while they laughed, he built. While they doubted, he planted. And while they forgot, he remembered. And that, my friends, was the weight of wisdom. Trust is fragile, and once broken, even the truth can sound like a lie. The story teaches that words carry power, and not every story needs to be told, especially when it isn't yours to share. When someone speaks too much or too often, people may stop believing them, even when they finally tell the truth. Through Ronke's habit of sharing everything she hears, we learn that keeping a secret is not just about loyalty. It's about respect, discipline, and knowing when silence is wiser than speech. In the end, it's not just about protecting gold, but about protecting trust.